Northern Sudan's Sai Island is the largest island in the Nile River, splitting the storied waterway in two as it flows towards the Egyptian border, just 100 miles to the north.
Sai Island is roughly 7.5 miles long and 3 miles wide. A pretty sizable island considering it sits in a river and not a more substantial body of water like a large lake or ocean.
Currently, there are very few inhabitants of Sai Island, but it has a rich history with signs of human occupation dating as far back as 300,000 years. And there's evidence of both ancient Egyptian and Ottoman settlements, so it draws a lot of attention from the scientific community.
In 2015, a team of archaeologists are excavating a burial site on Sai Island known as Tomb 26.
The tomb is accessed through a rock-cut shaft that descends to a depth of around 17 feet into a narrow passageway. This opens up to the tomb's main chamber, at the end of which is a small trench along the northern wall.
Although some cursory archaeological work was conducted in the 1970s, the site has never been extensively explored until now, and it isn't long before Tomb 26 yields an astonishing discovery.
Under the trench, they find a small chamber containing the remains of what appear to be 2 adults, 1 male and 1 female, lying side by side. It looks like a lot of time and effort went into burying these people, so they must have been held in high regard. So who were they?
As the team explores the chamber, they come across several items that may provide some clues as to the possible identity of the remains.
Near the head of one of the bodies, they find 3 small vessels made of faience. A glazed ceramic, usually blue-green in color. Ancient Egyptians used this style of glaze to make jewelry, sculptures, and ritual objects because they thought these items had certain magical powers.
So given the presence of faience objects in the chamber, it's safe to assume this is probably an ancient Egyptian burial site. But from when?
Further exploration of the site reveals the presence of more grave goods that could help the team determine the age of the bodies and pinpoint when the chamber was constructed.
In addition to the faience vessels, they find 3 ceramic flower pots, deep conical bowls with perforated bottoms. 2 are located at the feet of one of the bodies and 1 near the head.
Sai Island was known as Nubia and was part of the Kingdom of Kush, which stretched across what is now northern Sudan and southern Egypt. Nubia was conquered by the Egyptians sometime around 1500 BCE, and the Kush people fell under the empire's rule.
The Egyptians relied on the Kush for the import of many items, including ebony, incense, ivory, and other luxury goods. So this area was a sort of overlap between the 2 cultures.
Expanding the scope of the excavation, the team makes another astounding discovery.
There's a hidden chamber concealed by a plaster wall, and inside, they find the remains of 11 more individuals.
The remains belong to 9 adults and 2 infants. Unlike the first chamber, there's an abundance of grave goods, faience objects, pottery vessels, and jewelry, including a beautiful ring made of gold and silver.
They also find canopic jars, which were used to hold the organs that were removed from the body during the mummification process, usually the lungs, liver, intestines, and stomach.
Canopic jars were commonly used for mummification throughout many periods in ancient Egypt, starting in the Old Kingdom around 2700 BCE, through the New Kingdom between 1600 and 1100. They fell out of use during the late period.
Canopic jars were an important part of Egyptian funerary traditions. The earliest examples were quite plain and had unadorned lids. But by the period of the New Kingdom, they could sometimes be found sculpted with heads that symbolized the 4 sons of the god Horus. These were represented by a jackal, a falcon, a human, and a baboon.
Turning their attention back to the first chamber, the team combs the area around the remains, searching for any items that may have escaped their notice, and they are not disappointed.
It's remarkable. Near the chest area of the male remains an ornate stone scarab inscribed with hieroglyphics.
Scarabs are beetle-shaped amulets that were hugely popular in ancient Egypt. particularly in the funerary context, because they represented renewal and rebirth. They were thought to bring good luck in the afterlife and were as symbolically reverent to the Egyptians as the cross is to Christians.
The presence of these elaborate grave goods in both chambers indicates that these people must have been prominent members of Egyptian society. But that still doesn't tell us exactly who they were.
Not far from the scarab, the team discovers another object that may just solve the mystery once and for all.
They find a shapti, or a figurine in the shape of a mummy. The Egyptians placed them in the graves to act as servants to the deceased in the afterlife.
Shaptis come in all sizes and materials. The one discovered in the first chamber is made of stone, and just like the scarab, it's inscribed with hieroglyphics.
Armed with the scarab and shapti, the team sets about translating the inscriptions, and the pieces of the puzzle finally fall into place.
The inscriptions identify the male in the first chamber as Numos, master of gold workers. It's assumed that the female beside him is his wife, and the occupants of the other chamber are members of his extended family.
There were gold mines on Sai Island, and the Egyptians relied heavily on the region as a source for their favorite precious metal. In fact, it's thought that the word Nubia may be derived from the Egyptian word Nub, which means gold.
Numos was considered a master goldsmith, which afforded him a prominent place within the island's social hierarchy. Hence the elaborate burial site and all the grave goods.
As the team conducts an overall survey of Tomb 26, they can't help but notice loose pieces of mud brick scattered around the area.
Most of the important New Kingdom tombs on Sai Island have rock-cut chambers with adjacent mud brick structures. Given the layout of Tomb 26 and the mud brick debris, there may have been an impressive structure here at one time, possibly even a small pyramid with a courtyard or chapel inside.
As the team wraps up its investigation of Tomb 26, they decide to perform strontium analysis on the remains, which produces some very unexpected results.
Numos was not Egyptian. In fact, all the individuals found in the tomb were members of the local Nubian population. This is a bit shocking. The style of tomb, the grave goods, evidence of mummification, all these things point to an Egyptian burial.
It just goes to show that although these were Kush people, the culture and traditions of the Egyptians seeped into many aspects of their lives, including something as significant as funerary practices.
The lavish tomb of Numos, the master goldsmith, exemplifies the influence of the Egyptian Empire in Nubia during the New Kingdom period, and shows that, to the inhabitants of Sai Island, it was worth his weight in gold. In the middle of the Firth of Forth estuary, 2 miles from the closest shore and 30 minutes by boat from Edinburgh, lies a little jagged hunk of volcanic rock called Inchkeith Island. It's just a mile long, with an area of 56 acres.
Set in the gateway to Scotland where the river connects to the North Sea, a major trade route for the country, the Isles of the Firth of Forth are home to abundant bird and marine life, including seals.
In 2000, a small group of gray seals began giving birth on Inchkeith, and now more than 500 pups are born there every year, drawing the interest of local experts.
Zoologists studying wildlife on the Isles are observing newborn seals on a small stretch of Inchkeith Beach when they are drawn to a derelict shed up the shore by the sickly smell of death.
The smell belongs to a seal pup that passed away here, leaving behind a skull and tuft of white pup fur. There is an eeriness to this young seal passing in an abandoned structure like this. What happened here?
Wildlife has been steadily reclaiming this uninhabited island for decades, but while the animals are here now, one good look at this place tells you that was not always the case.
Exploring the island further, up from the beach near the island's highest ground and next to the lighthouse, is a massive stone wall.
The wall is 150 feet long, 5.5 feet thick and can be up to 20 feet tall in some areas. So it's very clearly fortified. There are even some windows in the wall that are like 2 feet wide. So it kind of looks like a castle, but is that what it is?
The Firth of Forth is positively surrounded by castles. Another on Inchkeith seems unnecessary. But what castles do need is protection. So perhaps this was a fort?
Walking along the imposing structure, at the entrance to a courtyard, they find a panel with a symbol of a shield carved into the stone, with some residual paint.
This is the symbol of the Royal Arms, the date 1564, and the initials MR for Maria Regina, better known as Mary Queen of Scots, who was Queen of Scotland from 1542 until 1567. This wall is what remains of a 16th century Franco-Scottish fort.
Today, Scotland and England are part of Great Britain, but before the Act of Union in 1707, which united the two countries, the neighboring nations were often in conflict. From the late 13th until the mid-16th centuries, Scotland and France were in a military alliance against the English.
In its full glory, the massive fort would have featured corner towers and been visible for miles, acting as a deterrent to Scotland's